And we're back with another Diddy deep dive. And this one's got to be the most complex so far. So grab some snacks and a tasty beverage before you buckle up for this wild and bumpy ride. Naomi Campbell is a highly successful supermodel with powerful connections in the fashion industry that she's amassed during her decades-long career. She also happens to be closely associated with Diddy and his sphere. As we know, fashion, makeup, and other creative mediums are married to the entertainment business, so this comes as no surprise. Philanthropy seems to be a secured fixture in this world as well, whether it's for the good image, for tax purposes, or genuinely out of the kindness of their own hearts is debatable, depending on the circumstances. In times of natural disaster, it's been common for celebrities to join forces and fundraise. In the summer of 2005, Hurricane Katrina ravaged Florida and caused an estimated $125 billion worth of damage.
Hurricane Katrina made landfall on August 29, 2005, and it still stands today as one of the worst disasters in our nation's history. Over 80% of the city of New Orleans received some water in the flooding. About 1,800 people died in Katrina, thousands were injured, and over 1 million were displaced.
Hurricane Katrina had profound effects on children and their families. We know that approximately 400,000 children left the city and were displaced, and years later, 160,000 children were still displaced.
Alice and I conducted a study on children after Hurricane Katrina, and we spent 7 years after the storm from 2005 to 2012 following a group of children between the ages of 3 and 18. And all of these children lived in New Orleans or in nearby surrounding areas at the time of Katrina. And all of them were displaced after the storm somewhere else. Some of them returned in the years after Katrina or the months after Katrina. Some of them never returned.
Naomi and Diddy had created the Fashion for Relief Fund, she being a fashion supermodel, and he with his Sean John clothing line that he'd launched in 1998. I suppose it made sense at the time. They raised $1 million, and it served as positive promotion for the two of them in the wake of the disaster. They seemed to be almost inseparable from the early 90s until the winter of 2023. This may be in part due to the legal troubles Naomi began facing with regards to the Fashion for Relief organization, which had continued operating until the summer of 2022, when restrictions and investigations had begun, or due to Diddy's legal problems that had begun surfacing in the spring of 2024. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves. The Charity Commission found that there were, and I quote, multiple instances of misconduct and or mismanagement, with one instance being a luxury vacation Naomi enjoyed while in France for the Cannes Film Festival, where funds were allotted for room service and spa treatments. Although Naomi asserts that she was not in control of the financial management of said charity, she's been barred from being a charity trustee for the next 5 years. She's also had her hand in various other causes other than natural disasters, including the Me Too movement and the Save the Children organization, which has also been a part of the Charity Commission inquiry. Her work supporting children in Africa should also be mentioned. And Diddy's star-studded 33rd birthday that was held in the northern African region of Morocco. 300 guests flew in from the US and Paris.
Ils l'ont bien compris.
New York, London, Paris, all my friends. Come on, let's show them how we party. Let's go.
I'd like to thank Jamel again. Jamel, I'd like to thank you very much for being such a wonderful host.
You just have one of the most beautiful countries in the world. Call me if you come to New York, so I can take you out. Peace.
Vous avez compris l'invitation?
Naomi was notably close with Nelson Mandela, who was the president of Africa, and she worked with him for the African Children's Fund around the same time.
Thanks, Carol.
As I said, nearly 100 heads of state, A-list celebrities, and thousands of everyday South Africans, young and old alike, braved the heavy rain to join the Mandela family and pay tribute to the revered statesman. Errol Barnett live in Johannesburg this morning with some of the morning's best moments.
Yes, welcome to the area outside the home of late President Nelson Mandela. You know, there's been a lot of activity here. You may hear some screaming next to me, and that's because supermodel Naomi Campbell has just come here to the home of the late president, waved to the crowd, and walked inside. You know, there's a lot of rain and gloom around me, but anyone who doesn't think there can be joy amid storms needs to come to South Africa now and see the atmosphere here.
In 1998, she hosted a Versace fashion benefit show at Nelson Mandela's presidential mansion.
We're heading to South Africa to do a fashion show for Nelson Mandela Children's Fund.
Naomi, who came up with the idea for the show?
I did when I was last year. I thought Valentine's Day, love show for Versace. It's good. I gave her some almond oil to put in, so it's so good.
Who picked the music for the show?
Versace, but the introduction is good.
Says she looks cute in the underwear. I've got one. We'll see in a panty and a bra. That's a cute one. Beautiful.
Here we go to see Granddaddy. Granddaddy's happy to see me. You have a police escort, don't you?
Exceptional. Exceptional. For you to do what you've done, you know.
Do you want
Good.
Good.
I see. No, good.
Yeah?
I've got a handy. I've got a handy.
Some cream. That's cream of pen. It's gone. Yeah, it's gone.
It's not always that I have such a famous model attending to my face.
She also became affiliated with a Nigerian children's dance academy called Dreamcatchers, which describes itself as a team of children from the street or bad homes.
I love you. You too. Oh my God. I want to know your names. Okay. Who's that? Start first. Tell me your name. My name is T-Bus. How old are you? You're 12. Hi, I'm Shane. I'm the mama. Oh, bless you. Bless you. What's your name? Jola. Tammy? Ethan. Ethan. So I've been dying to meet you. I can't believe I'm meeting you.
Naomi traveled with male supermodel Tyson Beckford for some of these excursions, but apparently had some kind of, and I quote, emotional falling out with Diddy. And after suing Diddy in 2005 for just over $1 million in unpaid modeling fees for the Sean John clothing line, he abruptly quit modeling.
Where is Tyson Beckford right now? And why is nobody talking about how after his stint at Russell Simmons and Diddy parties in the Hamptons, he went into pure drug addiction and now has just disappeared? He's not acting. What is Tyson Beckford doing? He was one of the biggest figures in the modeling world. Matter of fact, we see a lot of supermodels that keep coming and going and coming and going. And there's just a few that stay. But of the women, Naomi Campbell is something special for a dinosaur.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure out how she managed to get Ghislaine in jail and she's still walking around.
Naomi has managed to find herself in many strange circumstances related to the criminal intent of wealthy and influential people along the way. This may be in part due to her cocaine use. She admits she was a heavy user for a good portion of the 90s and early 2000s. She claims that the murder of Gianni Versace in 1997 was to blame for this. Although she'd been using prior to this event, it certainly didn't help.
It's so unfair. It's not fair.
How did you get the news? How did you learn of his death?
Yesterday I was driving to Rome to go to work for Johnny. And I was driving to Rome to meet Donatella and Santos and the whole team for rehearsal. And I got a phone call 10 minutes before I got to Rome, and I didn't believe it. So I got out the car and stopped the car, and then I got back in the car, and then someone called me and said it wasn't true, it was a mistake. And then when I got there and I saw Donatella, you know, so...
You found out it was in fact true.
Yeah.
You knew Johnny Versace, I know Naomi, for about 11 years. I know this is so hard for you, but what, in your view, made him such a special person?
He was a very modest person in terms of he would walk around the street by himself. He would never think that he needed a bodyguard or anything because he's, you know, he went everywhere on his own, and he's very generous. He's been very loyal to everybody. His hospitality extends more than anyone I've ever met. And, you know, he always, in terms of his work, had an edge and wanted to do something different, always did what he wanted to do, and always took whatever people said. It's like he always did it first somewhere, and, you know, it always worked. It was always successful for him. And we always enjoyed doing his shows. There was always a feeling of excitement and camaraderie between the girls backstage. And it's always good to feel so nervous before a show because that means you always try your hardest. And we always did try our hardest for Johnny.
Seems as if, Naomi, he was just a lot of fun to be around.
Well, you met him also. I remember meeting you with him in October, and, you know, we got up for him and we got there, and it was fun to do the show for you guys that morning. He was a very positive person with very positive energy.
Clearly, he has meant so much to you personally, but I know that he so often featured you in his shows. I mean, I assume that you were his favorite model.
I don't know if I was his favorite, but...
One of his favorites, right?
Yeah, he always, without, I never asked, would always come back and take my hand and walk me down the runway at the end with him. I just felt like he treated me as a woman with a lot of respect, and that's why Johnny's, he became such a good friend, and he always said in the papers that I was part of his family.
Chris Gardner loves Sunset Boulevard, but it's out to kill him.
Whatever your addiction is, you'll find it on the street. You want to be a part of it because the party never stops.
As a columnist for some of America's biggest publications, including People magazine, Chris's byline now means 2 lines of cocaine.
I worked at People magazine for a year, and I was probably going out 6 nights a week for that entire year. In my first week on the job, my editor said, I want you to become friends with Paris and Nikki and Nicole Richie and Lindsay Lohan and, you know, Britney Spears.
You start your day, and your editor says, give me something about Lindsay Lohan, just out of hand.
Sure.
How do you do that?
If he had said find out something about Lindsay, I would probably just text her or call her at that time.
But also, when it comes to Hollywood, there's a lot of drugs involved. So with Chris, the closer and closer he got to getting these scoops for his paper, the more and more he was getting involved in drugs. You know, Chris would be the guy who would leave the nightclub. He'd go downstairs and wait a half an hour while the dealer pulls up. You know, he deals with them, he gets the coke, and then he goes back in, because the celebrities, God forbid, you know, they go out and get their own stuff.
Not only could I write stories about them, but I could probably give them a couple lines of cocaine.
And you did that?
All the time.
Did celebrities that we would all know ask you to bring drugs to them?
Yes, and I did,
Lindsay Lohan, did you ever do drugs with her?
I did, yes, I did.
Are there people who we would be surprised about that you did drugs with?
One night I found myself at a party with Naomi Campbell. I mean, that's surprising.
She was doing drugs?
Yes.
Lindsay Lohan and Naomi Campbell declined comment on Chris's allegations. As for Chris, he's headed for a dead end, one missed deadline at a time. Drugs, gossip, and addiction on Sunset Boulevard.
That's a bad equation.
It's a bad equation. It's a recipe for disaster.
Her ex-fiancé, Flavio Briatore, who is 20 years her senior, and whom she was seeing between 1999 and 2003. He was convicted of several fraud charges in the 80s, and set up franchises in the Virgin Islands as a fugitive. Between 2009 and 2010, it was alleged that Naomi had been gifted blood diamonds from the Liberian president, Charles Taylor, who was being tried for war crimes in Sierra Leone committed between 1991 and 2002.
You received a diamond from Charles.
I didn't receive a diamond, and I'm not going to speak about that.
All right, she's a fierce supermodel, but also a little bit ferocious. Fashion model Naomi Campbell was asked about the allegations that she was given what's called a blood diamond by the deposed African Charles Taylor. This has become the center stage at Taylor's trial of crimes against humanity, and that led to another one of Campbell's infamous outbursts of anger. She walked out of an interview and then eventually took a swipe at the camera.
You have dinner, though, with Charles Taylor?
I had dinner with Nelson Mandela. Thank you very much.
We've been told that you didn't help the prosecution sort of in this very important case.
Sorry. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Yeah, international prosecutors say Taylor, the former president of Liberia, caused uncut diamonds to fund a campaign of terror.
You said that you had an early call the next day, and so you went upstairs to your room.
Everyone went up at the same time.
Did anything happen after you went upstairs to your room?
Yeah, when I was sleeping, I had a knock at my door, and I opened my door, and two men were there and gave me a pouch and said, "A gift for you."
Do you know what time that was that happened?
No, I don't know. I was sleeping, so I was woken up from my sleep.
And these two men, did you know who they were?
No, I'm afraid not.
Did these two men introduce themselves to you?
No, they did not.
Did you ever learn who they were?
No, I did not.
And you said they knocked at your door and they told you what?
A gift for you, and they gave me a pouch.
And did they say anything other than that?
No.
Did you ever subsequently learn who this gift was from?
No. I was there the next morning at breakfast. I told Miss Farrow and Miss White what had happened, and one of the two said, "Well, that's obviously Charles Taylor," and I just said, "Yeah, I guess it was."
This pouch that they gave you, what happened after they gave you the pouch?
When they gave me the pouch, I just put it next to my bed and went back to bed.
And so at that time you didn't look into the pouch?
I opened the pouch the next morning when I woke up.
And when they came to your door, did you ask them what this pouch was? What was in the pouch?
No, I took it and I just said thank you and went back, took it and shut my door.
And did they say anything about why they were bringing this pouch to you?
There was no explanation, no note.
So you put the pouch by your bed and then you went back to sleep?
Correct.
At some point, did you look into this pouch to see if there was anything in it?
In the morning, I did, yes, when I opened up in the morning.
And when you opened up this pouch, what did you discover?
I saw a few stones in there.
And
there was very small, dirty-looking stones.
And these small, dirty-looking stones, what did you do with them after you?
I went downstairs to breakfast, and I took all my luggage, my luggage with me, as we were to leave from breakfast to the cars to the train. And I wanted to find my friend, who's someone that I trust and does great things in South Africa with charity, to give them to him to do something with. I didn't want to keep them, and that's exactly what I did.
Other than this meeting with Charles Taylor at the dinner, since that time, or even later that night, have you had any other contact with Mr.
No contact at all.
Charles
Never
Taylor?
seen him again since the dinner table.
And Ms. Campbell, I notice again that you are answering before I finish.
Sorry.
Are you a bit nervous?
No, well, I didn't really want to be here, so I was made to be here. So obviously I'm just like wanting to get this over with and get on with my life. This is a big inconvenience for me.
And you said you didn't want to be here. Why did you not want to be
Because
here?
I really don't want anything to do with this, and I care about the protection of my family. And as I said on television before, I didn't want to have anything to do with this.
And why would you be concerned about the protection of your family?
Because this is someone that I read up on the internet that's killed thousands of people, supposedly, and I don't want my family in any danger in any way.
Question number one. On that night, neither of the men told you that these diamonds came from Charles Taylor. Is that right?
Correct.
Furthermore, the next morning at breakfast, you did not tell either Mia Farrow or Carol White that the men said the diamonds came from Charles Taylor, did you?
No, I did not.
The suggestion about Charles Taylor came from one of them.
Yes.
And so consequently, it is pure speculation that these diamonds came from Charles Taylor. That's correct, isn't it?
I just assumed that they were.
But it's pure speculation, isn't it?
I don't know. I just assumed that they were. That's not where I sat. I sat next to Mr. Mandela.
But hold on, Miss Campbell. It gets even better than that. Because later on in the statement, Miss White says this. The witness, that's Carol White, said that throughout the dinner, Miss Campbell and Mr. Taylor were mildly flirtatious with each other. The witness heard Mr. Taylor tell Miss Campbell that he was going to send her diamonds. Taylor and his people were staying some distance away, so it was arranged that he would send some men back with the gift. Is that true or false?
That's not true at all.
It's a lie, isn't it?
I was sat next to Mr. Mandela, and the conversations, if there was a conversation about diamonds, it wasn't to me. We spoke about what I was doing for the Children's Fund. I remember Mr. Mandela explained to Mr. Taylor what I did for the Children's Fund.
Because this morning you've already told us that you did not specifically speak to Charles Taylor that evening, did you?
I spoke in general. I was interested about Liberia. I never heard of it before. And he said he was the president of Liberia.
But you flirting with Charles Taylor, that's a complete lie, isn't it?
As I said before, when I'm with Mr. Mandela, and I think everyone in the world feels the same way, my attention and focus is with him. And it's an honor to be in his presence and to be with him in his house.
Forgive me if I press you a little further on this, Miss Campbell, but I would like a straight answer. This is a lie, isn't it?
Correct.
Thank you. 2 weeks after Carol White launches the lawsuit, she makes this declaration. Do you follow?
I understand, yes.
Now, I'm asking you about that for this reason. And I am not intending to be offensive. You'll see in a moment why I'm asking this question. Well, I thought Miss Campbell gave truthful and cogent evidence. And I think her position is quite clear. And it's a consistent position, because she's denied from word go that she ever received diamonds from Charles Taylor.
That in the night, she had been awakened. Some men were knocking at the door, and they had been sent by Charles Taylor, and they had given her a huge diamond.
In fact, Farrow testified Naomi Campbell knew the diamonds were from Charles Taylor, the Liberian ex-president. But last week, the former supermodel said some men gave her 2 or 3 dirty-looking stones, and she only assumed they were from Taylor. Taylor is now on trial for war crimes.
In 2019, she was brought under fire due to her association with Epstein, having appeared on the flight logs and in his black book. She made a public statement asserting that he was only an acquaintance. However, the star witness, Virginia, alleges that Naomi and Ghislaine were good friends.
I've always said that I'm not a saint, that I am a work in progress, but I will not be held hostage by my past. Passion for Relief is something that came to my mind in 2005. We started with Hurricane Katrina. We've helped the floods in Japan. We've worked with the great association Save the Children. We worked with Sarah Brown, the former Prime Minister's wife, Gordon Brown's wife. White Women Alliance, maternal health, Ebola crisis, the floods in UK. I mean, it goes on. I'm not going to stop. and I won't be undermined or have my team be undermined for all the wonderful and great work and for all the people that have collaborated and supported the cause that Fashion for Relief chooses each year. I've rubbed shoulders with hundreds of thousands of people. I mean, I find it extraordinary that of all the hundreds of thousands of people that I've stood next to take a picture at a public event, they've only chosen these few. It's going to be very difficult to be photographed at public events because you're going to think if you do take a picture, it's going to be taken out of context and used in a negative way. So it's going to be sad for everybody.
I should also note that both Naomi and Diddy seem to have a problem controlling their temper, with Naomi catching at least 4 assault charges between 1998 and 2010. In spite of any bad publicity, the way Naomi was able to make her way around the fashion, business, and entertainment industries was actually pretty astonishing. When you go back through the years, especially in the late 90s and early 2000s, it seems like Naomi was like a party liaison of sorts, social lubricant. She seemed to not only bridge the racial gap, but served as a conduit between the US and UK when it came to the luxurious events and mingling of the most powerful and influential leaders of their respective industry. She, a supermodel, obviously had dominated her own field and inserted herself into the music industry via people like L.A. Reid, Russell Simmons, Andre Harrell, as well as Clive Davis. She'd also made her way through royalty and high-powered finance circles.
The British supermodel Naomi Campbell has been given a new prominent role for the Platinum Jubilee celebrations for Queen Elizabeth. She's been appointed as an ambassador for the Queen's Commonwealth Trust.
Now what does all of this have to do with Diddy? Besides the fact that Naomi dated both Diddy and Usher for a time, but she's also served as female companionship at various events for many within Diddy's sphere, including Justin Bieber and Leonardo DiCaprio. She was also supposedly seeing Liam Payne for a few months in 2019, whose life tragically ended on October 16, 2024, in a mysterious and untimely fashion, as seems to be all too common in the industry. Whether this 31-year-old's passing has anything to do with the Diddy situation or not, I can't say for sure right now. There was a resurfaced clip of Liam retelling an interaction with Diddy and Jay-Z. He also mentions that Leonardo DiCaprio was there, and this gives us a bit of a timeline of when or where the three may have crossed paths. Diddy and Naomi have had a decades-long friendship and business relationship. So what else could they have been cooking up behind the scenes? Knowing how nonchalant she was about having a close friendship to a powerful figure who was a literal war criminal, it's not too far-fetched to presume that she didn't have any qualms with criminality or being embroiled in a lucrative criminal enterprise. Allegedly. Now let's take a closer look at some of the other charitable ventures that Diddy pursued. In the 90s, and sharing the same name of his Daddy's House recording studio, he had a children's charity called Daddy's House Social Programs, which included preparation for life classes for the economically challenged and focused on enriching the lives of homeless and foster children. Daddy's House International Travel Group would take 10 to 15 children to foreign countries like South Africa every year. They also ran a sleepaway camp, where they'd send 200 kids between the ages of 6 and 16 to a campsite in upstate New York for 3 weeks in the summer. Although Diddy's hip-hop empire rapidly expanded and his profits had massively increased, in 2006, this endeavor was abandoned. Once he was gaining more fame and notoriety, he started being invited to Kids and Teens' Choice Award shows as a performer, which gave him access to young musical talent, child stars, and fans, even having his own segments on the Nickelodeon show All That was created by disgraced kids show producer Dan Schneider, who many believe is part of the reason that Amanda Bynes struggled through adolescence and into adulthood. He and his affiliation with child offenders was exposed in the Quiet on Set docuseries that was released this year in March of 2024. He'd also began aligning with wealthier and more powerful contacts overseas, in part via his association with Naomi. Also in the early 2000s, Diddy had purchased his Star Island properties, which are not only across the road from Port Miami, but within an hour's drive to Epstein's Florida mansion. Dock workers at Miami Port went on strike this year as well, where on the surface it seemed they simply wanted higher wages. But some insiders have reported that they were tired of allegedly hearing the commotion of children coming from shipping containers, and nothing coming of it or being done to stop it, in spite of multiple reports being made to the shipping authorities. Perhaps I should also mention his waterfront property in the Hamptons that he'd purchased in 1998, which was in close proximity to the sleepaway camp location where he'd been bringing kids from low-income areas of New York and Connecticut around the same time. All in all, Diddy's East Side real estate properties were very conveniently located when it came to land and air. Not to mention that his Beverly Hills property has been reported to have tunnels connecting to other mansions close by, like the Playboy Mansion. Allegedly. There are widespread and intricate tunnel systems all over most major cities, like Los Angeles and New York, due to the Prohibition era, where people created new ways of passage to smuggle alcohol and allow the wealthy to keep the party going. There are still many Prohibition-style houses as well, which have many secret hiding spots and passageways to travel under the main drag and either to enter each other's homes and or underground party areas, also known as speakeasies. With all of that said, I should mention that Diddy was also connected to a large parcel of land located on the U.S.-Mexican border, which also happens to be a hotspot for human trafficking, in association with a children's charity similar to the Daddy's House operation, but with Diddy more so as a silent partner/investor for what's called the Sunset Dior Foundation. I'm not making any specific accusations. I am merely providing additional information that may or may not be related to what has been alleged in the federal indictment, which implies that there was a criminal enterprise involving human trafficking, narcotics, and crimes relating to minors. Allegedly. This is just a hypothetical exploration of how that particular criminal enterprise could have been operating in plain sight. It's fair to say that Epstein was not the only one with a private jet, access to yachts, and a private island. There is a whole ecosystem that allows for those with wealth and power to travel more easily and privately than the average. Do your own research and come to your own conclusions, of course. There's millions of children going missing all over the world every year, and there's still foreign nations that allow for inappropriate relations with minors, like some regions of Europe, where Diddy's good friend Ashton Kutcher and his wife Mila Kunis have expressed an interest in moving to in the midst of everything coming to light. Ashton and Mila had already come under fire for their defense and support of their co-star and friend Danny Masterson, who is facing, although on a much smaller scale, somewhat similar charges to Diddy. In September of 2023, Masterson was sentenced to 30 years in prison. More celebrities currently in the hot seat are Nick Carter from the Backstreet Boys, fashion mogul Peter Nygard, television producer Eric Weinberg, best known for Scrubs and many other hit TV shows. Harvey Weinstein is still going through the trial process for decades of allegations, although he's already serving time in prison. Former porn star Ron Jeremy is currently on house arrest for dozens of assaults, many being minors at the time. Same with R. Kelly, who's serving time in prison, but has very recently been accused by his own daughter.
Real quick, Jack, I have to ask you, you spoke on R. Kelly. Yeah. His daughter, I believe it might be out by the time this comes out, but his daughter has something to say about her father, a secret that she kept about her father that made her say, I'll never bring your grandchildren around you, because of something that may have happened that conspired between them two. For her...
Basically, she's alleging that her father lost his control with her.
Basically, that's what she's alleging. And again, I don't know where it's going. She hasn't said it, but she's going to say it, I assume. But when you hear stories like that where obviously this secret has been held since she was a child, and she's a woman now, and she's saying, I didn't want to believe it about my father until it happened to me.
It happened to me.
Like, how many of these stories you feel exist?
Lots, on lots, on lots.
The list literally goes on, and things are only going to get even more crystal clear going into 2025 about how prevalent the darkness within the industry is. How many celebrities have already Polanski'd their way out in advance, I wonder. If there is indeed some bigger criminal enterprise being operated, who are the investors? Who's profiting and are actively participating? Who are the customers? Hollywood is like a small town. Everyone is connected in some way, especially within the exclusivity of the coveted A-list. They all cross paths at various functions, film festivals, fundraising galas, and the other star-studded events, and attend the respective before and after parties. Many of them also have their own islands, like Sir Richard Branson, who owns Necker Island, which is only a hop, skip, and a jump away from Epstein's. Again, not accusing anyone of any wrongdoing who's not been tried and convicted in the court of law. I just want you to imagine the possibilities of other grand functions and affairs that could be taking place far beyond the public eye. We know their narcissism befalls them with the hundreds of photos taken at every function, but what about the events where cameras were not allowed, like Bohemian Grove, which is a highly secretive and privatized gathering place for high-powered and influential businessmen to behave like frat brothers while glamping in the northern region of California. How many more of these places exist in foreign regions and on islands? Should we talk about North Fox Island? Or maybe we should talk about Cabo Verde, a very small remote island with very relaxed laws and no extradition treaty with the US, an island that Diddy traveled to the day that he was raided, where his good pal Will Smith also spent a lot of time, and allegedly victimized an amputee.
My name is Jessica Iwara, and I have something to say. My name is Jessica Iwara. I was put into foster care at 4 days old. I am Cape Verdean and Haitian. Cabo Verde is a small island in the middle of nowhere in Africa, with laws that are very limited for expedition back to states if you do bad. My family member, Cesaria Iborra, was a famous singer for many years. She died in 2011. I was put into foster care, but I was still in contact at that time with my biological family. I was sent to my biological family member's house for Christmas every year since I was 8 years old. I experienced a lot of dark times. My vessel was taken at 8 years old by a family member, but it was clear that it was a generational curse and pattern that was put on her from somebody else in the family. I never knew who. Back to Cesaria Iborra. Cesaria Iborra was discovered later on in her life. I think she was like 40 or something. They called her the Barefoot Diva. She has a beautiful voice. I encourage everyone to go listen to her. But what I always thought was weird was, we came from a country in the middle of nowhere. She was an orphan. She randomly popped up on the scene like in her mid-40s or whatever it was, or 30s, whatever it was. How did she get discovered in the first place on a little island in the middle of Africa? And so I started to put the puzzle pieces together. William Smith. As I mentioned in the previous video, I was given a fake opportunity by the diddler, and they attempted to got me, if that makes sense. But what they didn't know is I love a secret mission. And I knew everything that was going on before I went to Arizona from some special friends from high places. I didn't connect the dots with William and the diddler until the arrest and all of the allegations are coming out. So you want to play a game? I love games. Because I couldn't got me in February, a couple months ago, I continued doing my own thing because I don't need man for blessings, I only need God. And about 2 months ago, I got many messages from a specific person that is the protege of William. And then I started to connect the dots. Back in the 90s, Tupac Shakur was with Kadada Jones, who is the daughter of Quincy Jones, who was also involved with the diddler, and Michael Jackson. They sent Kadada Jones as a decoy for Tupac to distract him while the diddler was able to get him. Uh-oh. And so I started to put the puzzle pieces together that this wasn't just about me being a no-legged, you-know-what, that won't go away. William was very close with Cesaria Evora, apparently. Very close to Cape Verde, this island that's in the middle of nowhere. Very close to Madonna, who always gave me the creeps. You can check on Google Cesaria Evora and Madonna. This particular picture that I would always look at and I would get confused because she clearly looks out of her mind. That she's on something. So start putting the puzzle pieces together. I want everyone to know that anyone of status, great status, needs to do things to get there. Okay? And to get there, you will lose your soul. Anyways, Cesaria Evora passed away at an extremely young age in 2011. I think she was like 50-something. And I always thought that was really weird, even before I even, came into this whole holy hell. I started putting the puzzle pieces together. William, what's on that island, Cabo Verde? There's no laws over there, Cabo Verde. Why were you on an island in the middle of Africa and the whole industry is obsessed with Africa right now? William? I don't know who needs to hear this, but I really do. Y'all should have got me in Arizona, because I'm coming for you.
Here's a clip of Will on that island, singing a Cesaria song. Very bad things exist, involving those who are presumed or presenting as good people. People who are considered role models and leaders of society. We know that many wealthy and influential people were to be named in lawsuits against Diddy, but that many have already began paying settlements to keep their involvement private. It's up to us to put the pieces together and make an informed decision about who we continue to support. There's still so much more to dig into here, and such little time. More lawsuits are being filed that reveal how nefarious and pervasive these heinous crimes within the industry are, but perhaps it's simply a series of unfortunate coincidences, and there's nothing to see here at all. I'm just a crazy conspiracy theorist. Do your own research, draw your own conclusion. And for the record, I'm happy and healthy, and in no way want to cancel my subscription to Earth. So make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the flip side.